They said I was born for this, to kill, to disappear, to never feel. But no one warned me what happens when the target looks you in the eye and you forget which side you're on. Hi family, before we start, can you please take a moment to subscribe my YouTube channel to help us grow? We appreciate your subscription and support. Now let's continue. Rain pressed against the old glass panes of the coastal mansion, tracing lines down the window like silent alarms. A storm was moving in from the bay, swallowing the moonlight and muting the city lights below. Inside, Maria Jones checked her watch once, then slid the suppressor onto her weapon. Her pulse stayed steady. Her instructors had taught her that a quiet heartbeat was the best disguise. She'd studied the man for months, Jack Light, the one they called the Mafia boss. No photos on public record, no digital footprint, just stories whispered by people who feared being heard. The file said he was ruthless, precise, and untouchable. The file didn't mention that he loved classical music or that he read history books annotated in the margins. Those details she'd found herself. They made the job feel harder than it should. Maria moved through the corridor, each step absorbed by the Persian runner beneath her boots. Security had been minimal tonight. Only 2 guards outside, one near the kitchen, both distracted by the storm. Her contact had arranged the timing well. She had 6 minutes. The office door stood at the end of the hall, half closed. A faint light spilled through the gap. She eased it open. The air smelled faintly of cigar ash and cedar. Papers covered a long table. Maps, ledgers, half-finished whiskey. And him. Jack Light sat with his back to her, coat draped over the chair, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair caught the lamplight as he turned a page. He wasn't what she expected. No heavy jewelry, no arrogance in posture. Just a man who looked like he'd already thought of every way this night could end. Maria raised the gun. The wind outside shifted, slamming the shutters. He glanced toward the window, then toward her reflection in the glass. Their eyes met, hers wide as calm. He didn't reach for a weapon. He simply said, "You're late." For a heartbeat, she froze. He knew. The office door burst open behind her. 2 of his men moved in fast, disarming her before she could aim again. One slammed her against the desk, pinning her wrists. She didn't fight, not yet. The gun slid across the wood and stopped near Jack's hand. He stood, unhurried, the quiet kind of authority that didn't need shouting. "Who sent you?" His voice was low, controlled, almost curious. Maria said nothing. The shorter guard, Andy Dim, pressed harder on her shoulder. "Boss, she doesn't talk, I can make her." Jack lifted a hand. "No, she'll talk when she chooses." He looked at her again. "You've got skill. Whoever hired you paid for quality. But you hesitated before you pulled that trigger." He leaned closer, his breath warm against the cold air. "Why?" She kept her gaze on the table. "Maybe I missed." He smiled slightly. "And maybe I let you." Andy dragged a chair forward, forcing her to sit. Rain hammered the windows harder now. The lights flickered. The mansion felt smaller, tighter, as if the storm outside was holding its breath. Jack moved behind his desk. "You're not leaving here until you tell us who sent you to kill me," he said, echoing the order that would define everything between them. Maria weighed her options. Lie and die slowly. Tell the truth and die faster. But there was something in his tone, not cruelty, not mercy, something like recognition. She'd seen that same look in mirrors, someone tired of pretending he didn't care. "I don't know his name," she said finally, "only that he wanted you gone before sunrise." Jack studied her face. "And you agreed." "It's what I do." He poured another glass of whiskey, set it in front of her. "Drink. You'll need it." She didn't move. "Poison. If I wanted you dead," he said, "we wouldn't be talking." Andy shifted impatiently. "Boss, we can get more out of her." "Enough," Jack said. "Leave us." When the door closed, silence took shape between them. The clock ticked, the storm growled. Jack walked to the window, watching lightning cut through the clouds. "You don't look like a killer," he said quietly. Maria almost laughed. "You don't look like a legend." He turned. Legends die when people stop fearing them. Their eyes locked again. Something unspoken crossed the distance. Not trust, not yet, but the recognition of two people who understood what it meant to live on borrowed time. A phone buzzed on his desk. He glanced at the screen, expression shifting. "Interesting," he murmured, then to her. "Seems one of my own men made a call the moment you arrived." "Someone on the inside sold you out," she said. He nodded slowly. "Maybe the same one who sent you." Thunder rolled through the room, shaking the glass. Maria's pulse finally betrayed her. Jack noticed. He walked closer until the space between them carried both heat and danger. "Tell me something, Maria Jones," he said, her name like a challenge. "When you aimed at me, what stopped you?" She met his stare. "You looked ready to die." He exhaled half a laugh. "And that made you hesitate?" "No," she said. "It made me wonder who'd want to finish the job." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he reached behind her, picked up her gun, and placed it in her palm. The cold metal startled her. "Next time you aim," he said, "make sure you're certain which side you're on." He walked out, leaving her alone with the sound of the storm and a weapon she could use only if she decided what she truly believed. Maria sat there, the taste of tension sharp on her tongue, and realized the mission had already changed. Rain still poured, muffling the sound of tires on the long drive outside. Somewhere deep in the mansion, a generator hummed to life. Maria sat in the same chair Jack had left her in, wrists raw from the cable ties Andy had tightened before walking out. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m. She counted the seconds between the thunder and the lightning, the way she used to count heartbeats during training. Waiting was part of survival. But waiting in Jack Light's house felt different, like sitting inside the eye of something that could swallow her whole if she breathed too loud. The door opened again. Andy Dimm stepped in, his expression sharp from too much caffeine and too little patience. He dropped a folder on the desk and leaned against it. "Boss wants to play nice," he said, "but I don't. So let's make this easy. Who paid you?" Maria didn't look up. "I already told him. I don't know the name." Andy circled her like a restless animal. "Funny thing," he said, "people who come after Jack usually end up without tongues. Yet here you are, talking back. I guess I'm lucky." He stopped behind her chair. "No, sweetheart. You're alive because he's curious. Don't mistake curiosity for mercy." The handle clicked again. Jack entered, dry now, his dark shirt buttoned to the throat. The storm had washed any softness from his face. He glanced at Andy. "Out." Andy hesitated. "Boss, she." "Out." Jack repeated, calm but final. Andy left without another word. Jack moved closer, untying the cable from her wrists himself. His fingers brushed hers, brief, steady, almost clinical. "You can lie to Andy," he said. "He enjoys noise. I prefer silence." Maria rubbed the marks on her skin. "And if silence doesn't give you what you want, then I listen harder." He poured 2 cups of coffee from a silver carafe on the side table. The aroma filled the space. Dark roast, expensive, bitter. He handed one to her. "Drink." She hesitated, then took it. The warmth steadied her hands more than she wanted to admit. Jack sat opposite her. "The man who sent you, what did he offer?" "Enough money to disappear. And yet you're still here. Your men ruined the plan." He smiled faintly. "My men ruin many plans, but not without reason." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "What I don't understand is the hesitation. You had a clean shot. I've seen the angle from the camera feed. You hesitated for almost 3 seconds. Why? Maybe I blinked. You don't strike me as the blinking type." Maria said nothing. The coffee tasted like rust. She stared at the rain instead, counting again. Lightning flashed across his reflection in the window. He didn't look like the monster the world whispered about. He looked like a man who'd spent too long expecting betrayal. Jack rose and walked behind her. "You worked alone?" "Yes." "No lookout? No escape driver?" "No one." He stopped beside her shoulder. "So if you died tonight, no one would come looking?" "People don't look for ghosts." He almost laughed. "Then you and I have that in common." She turned, meeting his eyes. "You think you're a ghost?" "I think I died the first time I had to order a friend's body buried," he said quietly. "Everything after that was just paperwork." For a moment, neither spoke. The storm softened, turning from rage to drizzle. The sound of it filled the gaps their words couldn't. Jack finally said, "You'll stay here for now." That a threat or an invitation? Both. You move until I find the one who sent you. When I do, I'll decide whether you're the messenger or the message. He walked to the door, then paused. Maria. She looked up. Eat something. My cook will bring food. And if you try to run again, Andy will shoot first and apologize later. He left. The door shut with a click that sounded more final than locks ever could. Maria sat back, exhaling for the first time since midnight. The coffee had gone cold. She traced the rim of the cup with one finger, thinking of his words. Ghosts, betrayal, paperwork. None of it fit the man in the file. Outside, dawn was beginning to hint along the horizon. A thin strip of gray-blue light crept across the sea. She told herself she would survive the night, find a way out before he broke through her defenses. But some part of her, the part that had hesitated with the gun, already knew the truth. Survival might not be the hardest thing here. It might be learning why she didn't want to pull the trigger in the first place. The first morning light came through the tall windows like a reluctant confession. Maria hadn't slept. The guest room they'd given her was too quiet. No hum of traffic, no creak of city pipes. Silence this thick felt like surveillance. She spent the early hours cataloging everything. 2 exits, 1 camera in the hall, a faint click from the vent. Listening equipment, probably. Whoever built this place believed in information more than locks. A soft knock came at the door. When she didn't answer, it opened anyway. A woman in a gray uniform carried a tray. Toast, black coffee, and a single slice of fruit. Mr. Light said you might not eat, but he asked me to try, the woman said. Maria nodded. You always do what he asks. The woman's smile was small, almost respectful. Everyone does, eventually. She left before Maria could reply. Maria ate enough to keep her focus. Hunger was a weakness she couldn't afford. Downstairs, the mansion had changed with daylight. What looked threatening by night now felt calculated. The air smelled of polished wood and rain-soaked earth from the open terrace. She followed the sound of conversation until she reached a study lined with shelves. Jack stood near a map spread across a long table, talking with Andy. The shipment route was compromised, Andy was saying. Could be linked to the attempt on you. Jack looked up as soon as Maria appeared. He didn't look surprised. He looked as if he'd expected her at that precise second. Good morning, assassin, he said. Sleep well. She ignored the jab. You said I'd stay here. I didn't agree to being locked up. Then you should have killed me, he said simply, turning back to the map. Andy's jaw tightened. Boss, you can't just let her walk around. I can, Jack said. She won't run. She wants to know who sent her as much as I do. He met Maria's eyes again. Don't you? She didn't answer, but her silence gave him all he needed. Andy muttered something under his breath and left the room. Jack rolled the map away and gestured to a chair. Sit. I want to understand something. Maria stayed standing. You can ask from there. He smiled a little. Fair enough. He reached for a folder on the desk and opened it. Her photograph was paper-clipped to the top. Maria Jones, 26, trained abroad, several identities, clean record in every country you visited. That's not a coincidence. Somebody powerful keeps you invisible. Or I'm just better than your people. You seem to like that answer. Maybe. But everyone has a reason for doing what they do. What's yours? She folded her arms. What's yours? I started young. Family business. He shrugged lightly. Then the family died. The business stayed. That's not a reason, she said. It's the only one that survived. For a moment, she saw it. Weariness underneath the calm. The kind that comes from building empires out of other people's fear. She almost pitied him before she remembered who he was. Jack poured 2 glasses of water, no ice, and offered one. She took it this time. Tell me about the man who hired you, he said. I told you I never saw his face. He called himself the broker. Used intermediaries. Paid in crypto. The file had your name, your address, nothing else. And you didn't ask why. Assassins who ask too many questions end up dead. He leaned back against the desk, watching her. You're not afraid of death. You're afraid of meaning. She frowned. Meaning? The moment you hesitate, things start to mean something. And then you can't do this work anymore. Maria looked away. The truth of it struck too close. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the sea flat and gray. Jack walked toward the window. You could have taken the money and run when the plan failed, he said. Instead, you're still here. I didn't have much choice. Maybe you did. He turned to face her again. What if I offered you another job? She stared at him. You want to hire the woman who tried to kill you? I want to find out who wants me gone. You already have their trail. Work with me. Help me end this, and you walk away clean. And if I say no, he stepped closer until she could see the faint scar that cut through his left eyebrow. Then you'll stay here anyway, and we'll both waste time. Her instinct told her to refuse. But curiosity, dangerous, magnetic, held her still. You'd trust me after last night? I don't trust you, he said. I'm interested in you. That's worse. Later that afternoon, Andy found her in the courtyard. He tossed a small comm device in her palm. Boss says you're part of the team now, he said, his tone somewhere between disbelief and warning. Don't make me regret not shooting you. I'll try to behave, she said. He scowled. You don't get it. Around here, curiosity kills more than bullets. She watched him walk away and slipped the device into her pocket. For the first time since the mission began, she felt something close to control, and it scared her. From the upper balcony, Jack watched the exchange. His expression was unreadable, but when their eyes met, he gave the slightest nod, as if they shared a secret neither was ready to name. Night came again, softer this time. Maria sat by the window of her room, the comm device beside her. Somewhere below, she could hear the faint strains of piano music drifting from the study. It wasn't the music itself that held her attention. It was the realization that he played alone. She closed her eyes. The melody echoed, like a confession she hadn't asked to hear. For the first time, Maria wondered if the most dangerous part of her assignment wasn't surviving Jack Light at all. It was understanding him. The next morning broke quiet, too quiet for a house filled with men who lived by guns and orders. Maria was up before dawn, standing by the window again. The ocean shimmered faintly in the distance, the same gray-blue that matched the weight in her chest. She had spent most of the night thinking about Jack's words. You're not afraid of death. You're afraid of meaning. He was right. Meaning made everything dangerous. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It wasn't the maid this time. When Maria opened the door, a woman stood there, tall, sharp, elegance wrapped in a silk robe. Her perfume filled the space before she even spoke. Maria, right? The woman asked. Her tone dipped in sweetness, but her eyes calculating. I'm Sylvia. The name struck something faint in Maria's memory, and he had mentioned her once the night before, in passing. Jack's old friend, or something more. Maria simply nodded. You need something? Sylvia smiled in a way that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just wanted to see the famous guest everyone's whispering about. You must be interesting to have Jack's attention this long. Maria didn't rise to the bait. He's the one who won't let me leave. Sylvia chuckled softly. That sounds like him. But don't confuse control with interest, dear. He does that to everyone, until they forget who they are. Her voice dropped slightly, closer to a threat than a warning. Be careful not to forget yourself. She turned and left, leaving the faint echo of her heels down the corridor. Later that day, the mansion was restless. Guards moved faster. Radios buzzed more often. Jack had called a meeting in the courtyard. Something about a shipment gone wrong. Another leak. Maria watched from the balcony, unnoticed, her sharp eyes tracking every movement. Sylvia stood beside Jack, her posture casual, but her gaze territorial. Every time Jack spoke, Sylvia leaned in slightly, as if to remind everyone that she had been there first. And he noticed Maria watching and came up the stairs. You're learning fast, he said. Most people who cross him don't live long enough to stand on that balcony. Maria didn't take her eyes off Jack. Maybe I'm not most people. Andy smirked. He seems to think so. Then his tone hardened. Just don't make the mistake of thinking you can change him. Nobody can. She turned toward him, her voice low but steady. I don't want to change him. I just want the truth. When the meeting ended, Jack went straight to his office. Maria followed without asking permission. He looked up from his desk as she entered. You've been busy watching, he said. You said you wanted me to work with you, she replied. Then tell me what I need to know. He studied her for a moment, then motioned to a seat. On the table were photos, surveillance shots, coded documents, and a map marked with red circles. Another attempt was made early this morning, he said. 2 of my men were ambushed on the east route. Whoever wants me gone isn't just guessing. They know our schedules, our patterns. Maria leaned forward. That means you have a mole. Jack nodded. I've known for weeks. I just haven't been able to find who. Maybe that's why they sent me, Maria said quietly. To make sure you don't get the chance to. Jack's gaze sharpened. And now, she said, I'm not so sure who the real target is anymore. There was a silence thick enough to hold a heartbeat. Then a voice sliced through it. I hope I'm not interrupting. Sylvia stood by the door, holding a glass of red wine like it was a weapon. She smiled faintly. I didn't realize you had company, Jack. Jack straightened. We're working. Of course. Her eyes flicked to Maria. You do love your little projects. Maria stood. If you're done marking territory, we have real problems. Sylvia's expression froze for half a second before she laughed softly. You're bold. I'll give you that. Jack stepped in before it could escalate. Enough, both of you. His tone carried authority that made the room still. Sylvia, we'll talk later. Sylvia lingered a second longer. Her gaze locked on Maria's, then left. Maria exhaled slowly. You keep interesting company. She's been around a long time, Jack said simply. Loyal, but sometimes loyalty turns into something else. Maria looked at him. Possession? Maybe. That night, Maria couldn't sleep again. The air felt different, tense, heavy like a storm building in the walls. She walked quietly down the hall, barefoot, careful not to wake anyone. As she passed the study, she saw lights spilling under the door. She pushed it open slightly and froze. Sylvia was there, standing too close to Jack, her voice soft but urgent. You're making a mistake, Sylvia was saying. You don't know her. You think you can control her, but she'll ruin you, Jack. Jack didn't reply immediately. His face was unreadable. Sylvia's tone broke slightly. I've been here since the beginning. Don't throw that away for someone who doesn't even want to be here. Maria's hand tightened around the doorframe. She shouldn't be listening, but she couldn't walk away. Jack finally spoke, his voice calm but final. Sylvia, this isn't about loyalty or history. It's about trust. And right now, I need someone who can think like the people coming after me. Sylvia stared at him, her eyes glistening with fury she tried to mask as pain. Then don't say I didn't warn you. She left, brushing past Maria in the doorway without even a glance. Jack looked up then, meeting Maria's eyes. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, he said, You shouldn't eavesdrop. She stepped into the light. You shouldn't keep enemies this close. He smiled faintly. Maybe I'm testing who's more dangerous. Maria folded her arms. You don't need to test me, Jack. I already told you. If I wanted you dead, you'd be gone. Jack leaned back, eyes narrowing with something that wasn't quite amusement. That's exactly why I keep you here. The air between them pulsed. Not romantic yet, but charged, like 2 storms colliding quietly. The mansion felt heavier that night. The rain had returned, this time softer, tapping against the terrace like a hesitant warning. Maria sat in the guest room, the comm device tucked into her palm. Every so often, she lifted it to her ear, listening for a single whisper of movement outside, any hint that the people who sent her had made a move. Hours passed. Silence stretched. She had nearly convinced herself that nothing was happening when the study door creaked open. Jack entered, unannounced. His coat was damp from the drizzle outside. The faint smell of cedar and leather followed him. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he sat across from her, eyes sharp, observing every subtle shift in her posture. You've been restless, he said finally. I'm a hunter, Maria replied. Restless comes with the territory. Jack leaned back, fingers drumming lightly on the desk. A hunter who hesitates is a corpse waiting for someone to write the obituary. She met his gaze steadily. I hesitated once. I learned from it. He smiled faintly, almost approvingly. You've been hiding something. Maria tilted her head. I could say the same about you. He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned closer, resting one elbow on the desk. The storm outside reflected in his eyes, dark, violent, and impossible to predict. Who sent you, Maria? She exhaled slowly. I don't know his name. Only that he wanted you gone before sunrise. Jack studied her. And you didn't care to ask why. I care about surviving, she said bluntly. Not about mysteries I can't solve. Survival is meaningless if you don't know who's writing the rules. For a long moment, silence filled the space. Then Jack reached for a drawer and pulled out a folder thick with papers and photos. He tossed it onto the desk. We've been tracking a broker for months, he said. Someone who moves contracts without leaving fingerprints. Whoever hired you, they're connected to him. Maria's pulse quickened. You're saying I wasn't sent by a rival gang? This broker, it's bigger. He nodded. Much bigger. And they're close. Too close. One of my own men made a call the moment you arrived. Someone in the Light Empire sold them information. Her stomach tightened. So the threat wasn't just on you. It was internal. Exactly, Jack said. And now you're part of it. You don't have a choice. Maria leaned forward. I never had one. Jack observed her in silence, then stood. We'll run checks on everyone. Every call, every contact. You'll stay here. No contact with the outside world unless I allow it. I understand, she said, though part of her resisted the idea of being confined. She had always operated on instinct, mobility, and the ability to disappear. Jack paused at the door, his gaze lingering on her. Don't make me regret keeping you alive. Her pulse picked up, half from fear, half from something else she didn't want to admit. I don't plan to. Hours later, she found herself on the terrace, listening to the rain drum softly against the stone. Andy appeared without warning, holding 2 cups of dark coffee. He handed one to her silently. You're lucky he keeps you around, he said quietly. Most who try this job don't. Maria took a sip. The warmth spread through her chest. I didn't come here to get lucky. No, Andy said, voice low. You came here to die. And somehow, you're still breathing. She gave him a small, tight smile. Maybe I want to see who dies next. Andy frowned but said nothing. He left, leaving her alone with the storm and the faint flicker of Jack's office light in the distance. Later, she was drawn back to the study, compelled by curiosity. The door was slightly ajar, and Jack was there, reviewing documents. He looked up as she approached. I've been thinking, she said, stepping inside. If the broker is real, he's been waiting for a chance to get to you for a long time. Maybe sending me was the test to see how strong your empire really is. Jack's eyes narrowed. And now, Maria said quietly, you have me, but I don't know if I'm an ally or a liability yet. Jack stood, walking to the window. Outside, the storm had lessened, leaving only a heavy fog over the water. Everyone in my life is a test, he said softly. Some pass. Some don't. She stepped closer. Do I pass? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed her a folder, another trail of information on the broker in his network. Passing isn't the question, he said. Surviving is. And right now, survival depends on trust. Yours in me, mine in you. Maria took the folder, her fingers brushing his. A spark of electricity ran through her. Not fear, not desire, but a dangerous combination of both. She opened it, scanning the pages, realizing that the mission she thought was simple had become infinitely more complicated. Jack studied her from across the room, silent and unreadable, as if weighing the cost of keeping her alive against the risk she represented. And Maria, for the first time, wondered if she wanted him to survive too. The mansion was quiet, but Maria knew silence rarely meant safety here. Every shadow, every footstep, every whisper of rain against the terrace was a warning she had learned to heed. She was no longer just an intruder. She was a part of Jack's world now, but the rules of that world were still a mystery. Jack had summoned her to the main hall that morning. The long, polished table gleamed under the natural light, papers and maps scattered like the threads of a spider's web. Andy Dim was already there, watching her closely, while Jack leaned against the wall, arms crossed, silent. You've been busy, Jack said without preamble. Any luck tracking the broker? Maria shook her head. Nothing solid, only fragments. Whoever they are, they've been careful. Jack nodded. Fragments are enough. People slip when they're greedy, or when they think they're invisible. At that moment, the intercom buzzed. Andy pressed the button. "Boss, you should see this." A series of encrypted messages flashed on the screen. Redacted phone numbers, codes, locations, and then a name she hadn't expected. Sylvia Light. Jack's eyes narrowed. "Sylvia." Maria's stomach tightened. "She's been close to you all this time." Jack didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the screen, reading each message carefully. His jaw tightened as he pieced it together. She's been feeding information to the broker. Every shipment, every route, every schedule. She knew when and where to strike. Maria felt the air thicken. Betrayal in this world wasn't rare, it was routine. But betrayal from someone this close, it was poison. Jack turned to her. "That's why they sent you. Not just to test my defenses, but to expose her. They counted on you being the perfect scapegoat." Maria's eyes widened. "So, I was part of their plan?" "In a way, yes," Jack said grimly. "But that doesn't mean you're expendable anymore." And he scrolled through the messages. "Boss, she's already mobilizing men. She knows we found out." Jack's expression hardened. "Then we move first. Maria, you're coming with me." The next hour was a blur of preparation. Guns checked, routes memorized, vehicles loaded. Maria had never seen Jack so meticulous, so focused, so deadly calm. Every man, every movement, every breath felt like a calculation. And through it all, Maria followed, not just as an ally, but as someone who could read the storm before it hit. They arrived at the warehouse just outside the city. Sylvia's men were already there, waiting, but the warehouse was empty of the broker's actual forces, a trap set by someone who knew the terrain. Jack's voice was low, steady. "Split up. No surprises. And keep her alive." Maria nodded. She didn't need to be told twice. Moments later, the first shots rang out. Shadows moved, men fell, and the smell of gunpowder filled the cold air. Maria's instincts took over. She ducked, rolled, aimed, and fired with precision. Every movement was calculated, every heartbeat synchronized with Jack's. Amid the chaos, Sylvia appeared. Her eyes locked on Maria's, and for a split second, fury and recognition collided. "I warned him," she hissed. Jack stepped between them, gun raised. "It's too late for warnings." Maria moved beside him, scanning for more threats. "She underestimated you," she said quietly. "And nearly underestimated me," Jack replied. His eyes flicked to Maria, brief but intense. Good instincts. The fight ended quickly, decisively. Sylvia's men were incapacitated, and Sylvia herself lay on the floor, bruised and angry. Jack stood above her, the weight of control clear in every movement. Maria knelt beside the document Sylvia had been using, scanning them quickly. The network was exposed, the broker's communications, the contacts, the planned hits. Jack's empire had been vulnerable, but now it was alive, breathing, and ready. Sylvia glared at Maria. "You think this changes anything?" Maria met her stare evenly. "It already did." Jack finally spoke. "The question isn't about revenge. It's about loyalty. Choose wisely, Sylvia, because you've already lost." By the time they returned to the mansion, the storm had passed. Maria was quiet, processing everything. She realized now that this world wasn't just about survival. It was about reading people, anticipating moves, understanding alliances, and knowing when trust was deadly. Jack watched her from across the room, his expression unreadable. "You handled yourself well." Maria finally allowed herself a small smile. "I didn't do it for you." "No," Jack said softly, "but you did it anyway." And somewhere deep inside, Maria knew that this night, the betrayal, the chaos, the revelations, had changed everything. Not just for Jack, but for herself. The mansion was silent that morning, but the air still carried the echo of last night's chaos. Maria moved quietly through the corridors, careful to avoid Andy and the other guards. She didn't want to be seen yet, not until she'd processed everything. Sylvia's betrayal had rattled her, but it also gave her clarity. This world was about calculation, not impulse, and she had survived long enough to know the rules. Jack found her in the study, leaning against the desk with a file in hand. His presence didn't startle her anymore. She had learned to anticipate it, the way a predator senses another predator nearby. "You're early," he said, voice low and controlled. "Sleep didn't come easy?" "I don't need much sleep," Maria said, eyes fixed on the papers in her own hands. "I need answers." Jack's gaze followed hers. "The broker. He's real, and he's closer than we thought. Sylvia was only a small piece of the puzzle. Now we have to move faster, strike smarter." Maria closed the folder and met his eyes. "Then let's make sure no one else underestimates us." For the first time since she'd arrived, she felt the weight of the partnership they were forming. She wasn't just a guest, not just a hired weapon. She was part of the plan, and Jack was allowing her to be. The morning turned into a careful dance. They reviewed surveillance, planned new routes for shipments, and traced communications. Every detail mattered. Maria found herself analyzing Jack as much as the threat. The way he anticipated moves, the way he commanded presence without raising his voice. "You trust him too easily," Andy muttered as he handed her a cup of coffee. "I trust actions, not words," Maria replied. Jack caught the tail end of her comment. "Smart," he said simply. No one else in the room questioned it. By nightfall, they were ready to make a move. Maria rode with Jack in the armored SUV, the city lights blurring past as they drove toward a location flagged by intercepted communications. She had learned the language of danger, silent signals, timing, and instinct, and now she saw Jack working in sync with her, anticipating threats before they materialized. "You're fast," Jack said as they approached a warehouse on the outskirts. "Not just with the gun, with your mind. Observation comes first," Maria replied. "Action comes second." He nodded, eyes narrowing as headlights cut through the fog. "Good. Tonight, you'll need both." The warehouse was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. Maria felt the familiar stir of adrenaline. Not fear, exactly, but awareness. Every shadow was a potential threat. Every echo of footsteps was a warning. Jack moved silently, leading her to the perimeter. "Split up," he whispered. "Communicate only if necessary." She nodded. The night stretched, tense and heavy. Then suddenly movement. Figures approached from the east entrance. Armed, coordinated, ready to strike. Maria's fingers tightened on her weapon. The fight was precise and brutal, controlled chaos. Jack and Maria moved like two halves of a whole, one striking, one covering, one anticipating the other's moves. By the time the last figure fell, the warehouse was silent again. Jack exhaled slowly. "You're good," he said. Maria wiped sweat from her brow. "I had good training." "No," he said, his gaze locking on hers. "You're good because you're alive, and you adapted. Most people don't survive the first hit." For the first time, Maria allowed herself to feel something other than tension. Respect, and something sharper, the faint spark of trust that had begun to grow between them. Back at the mansion, the silence felt different. The air was no longer oppressive. It was charged. Maria and Jack stood on the terrace, watching the fog lift over the city. "You handled yourself tonight," Jack said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure I wanted to," Maria replied. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "And now I'm part of it," she said, "whether I like it or not." Jack smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through his controlled demeanor. "Good, because from here on, we're bound by fire. Every step, every risk, every secret." Maria met his eyes. "I've learned that already." And in that moment, standing side by side in the night, they both understood that survival wasn't just about avoiding death. It was about the choices they made, the alliances they formed, and the lines they were willing to cross. The storm was gone, but the danger had only just begun. The mansion was quiet, but Maria sensed the tension before anyone spoke. It wasn't the kind of quiet that follows peace. It was the quiet that signals a storm about to break. Jack had called a meeting in his private study. Only Maria, Andy, and a few trusted lieutenants were present. Jack stood at the head of the table, a folder in his hands. He didn't waste words. The broker isn't just a name. It's a network, a shadow organization. Whoever sent Maria, isn't just targeting me. They're testing the entire empire. Maria's fingers tightened on the folder she held. She had trained for precision, stealth, and survival, but this was bigger than she had imagined. Jack opened the folder, sliding photographs and encrypted messages across the table. The broker has been inside our operations for months. Every shipment compromised, every route watched. And now, they've made a move that could cost lives. Andy muttered, "Boss, this is bigger than we thought. We need to hit them before they hit us again." Jack's dark eyes locked on Maria, "Which is why I brought you in fully. You were sent to kill me, yes, but now your skills and your perspective are key to finding them. We can't afford mistakes." Maria exhaled slowly. "So, this isn't personal anymore. It's war." Jack didn't respond immediately. He studied her like he was weighing whether she truly understood the stakes. "It's personal if you want it to be. For me, it's survival. For you, I'm not sure yet." The following days were a blur of strategy. Maria worked with Jack to analyze every piece of intelligence. Surveillance videos, phone intercepts, financial transfers. Each clue painted a more precise picture of the broker's operations. Slowly, patterns emerged. Finally, they had a lead. A man named Jason Dim, a shadow operative who had been moving undetected through the city. He was the broker's field agent, a man capable of infiltration, manipulation, and assassination. And according to Jack's intel, he was the one who had orchestrated the attempt on Jack's life through Sylvia. Maria felt her pulse quicken. Jason wasn't just a target. He was a puzzle, the kind that could shift everything if mishandled. Jack studied her. "We strike tonight. Quiet. Precision. No mistakes. You with me?" She nodded. "Always." Night fell, the city's lights reflecting faintly off the wet streets. Maria and Jack drove in silence, side by side in the armored SUV. Neither spoke. Words would have slowed them down. They reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts. The location traced from Jason's encrypted messages. Inside, shadows moved with precision. Jack gestured for Maria to stay behind him. She didn't flinch. Every muscle was ready, every instinct on alert. Jason appeared as expected, tall, controlled, confidence radiating from every movement. He smiled faintly, as if he had been expecting them. "So, Jack Light finally shows himself," he said. His eyes flicked to Maria. "And you brought a friend." Jack's response was a calm, "You won't leave here alive." The confrontation was tense. Words were minimal, movement spoke for them. Maria observed, anticipating Jason's strikes, noting weaknesses in his stance. Then, with Jack as distraction, she moved. The fight was precise, brutal, and short. Jason was skilled, but he had underestimated their coordination. Maria disarmed him. Jack kept him pinned, and finally Jason lay restrained, the threat neutralized for now. Jack turned to Maria, expression unreadable. "You did well." Maria exhaled, a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through her. "We did well." Jason glared up at them. "You think this ends here?" Jack's eyes darkened. "No, but it ends tonight for you." Back at the mansion, the night air was heavy with aftermath. Maria and Jack stood on the terrace again, looking out over the city. The storm had returned, a faint drizzle misting the night. "You handled yourself perfectly," Jack said softly. "I didn't do it for you," Maria replied. "No," he said, "but we survived because of each other." A new understanding passed between them. The broker had been revealed, the immediate threat neutralized, but the war was far from over. And somewhere deep inside, Maria realized that her life, her choices, and perhaps even her heart were now irrevocably entangled with Jack Light. The night stretched, silent except for the rain. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the chaos that had just passed, and of the storm that was still building inside the walls of Jack Light's empire. The mansion felt colder than usual that morning, though the sun had barely risen. Maria sat by the window, the cityscape stretching endlessly beyond the glass. Even after the broker had been revealed, the sense of calm was fleeting. She knew the calm was a trap. The real danger was lurking, ready to strike back. Jack entered quietly, his presence as steady and silent as ever. "They've been regrouping," he said, eyes scanning the skyline as if he could already see the threats forming. Maria turned to him. After tonight, they'll want revenge. Jack nodded slowly. Yes, and they'll be smarter this time. Jason's capture only slows them down. The broker's network is bigger than we thought. Every move we make now will be met with a counter. Maria clenched her fists. Then we hit them first. Jack studied her. Do you trust me? Her eyes narrowed. I've learned to watch first. Trust comes later. He gave a faint smile. Good. That's exactly what I needed to hear. By midday, the mansion buzzed with activity. Andy coordinated surveillance. Men patrolled the perimeter, and Maria reviewed every map and document Jack had acquired. The broker's reach was everywhere. Shipments, finances, even inside their supposedly secure network. Then, the first sign of trouble appeared. One of the scouts reported an unauthorized vehicle near the east entrance. Jack and Maria moved quickly, weapons ready. The vehicle sped away before they could intercept it. Inside, Maria recognized the subtle signature of the broker's operatives, small, deliberate mistakes left to mislead, to test defenses. They're probing, she said quietly. Jack nodded, and they're watching how we react. Every choice, every hesitation, they record it. That night, Maria and Jack moved out together. Unlike previous missions, this time they were proactive. They had traced the vehicle to a derelict factory near the river. Shadows moved along the walls, and the faint sound of radios buzzed through the air. Stay close, Jack whispered. Maria's instincts were sharp. Every footstep, every distant sound, every movement of the shadows was a signal. Then, a single figure emerged, Jason, freed from his temporary captivity by unknown allies. You think capturing me stopped anything? He sneered. The broker is everywhere, and we've been watching you as closely as you watched us. Jack's eyes darkened. We'll see about that. The fight was swift and precise. Maria moved like a shadow beside Jack, each motion calculated. Jason was skilled, but the combination of Jack's strategy and Maria's instincts overwhelmed him. This time, however, they realized something more dangerous. A larger force was closing in. The broker's army had already mobilized. Maria glanced at Jack. We're walking into a trap. Jack didn't respond immediately. His jaw tightened, eyes scanning the approaching figures. Then we make it our trap instead. They fought through the night, evading ambushes, countering attacks, and reading each other's movements with a precision that bordered on instinct. Every close call, every bullet narrowly avoided, strengthened their unspoken bond. By dawn, the streets were silent again, the chaos left behind like a fading nightmare. Maria leaned against the SUV, breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through her. Jack approached her, expression unreadable. You handled yourself perfectly, he said. Maria shook her head, brushing rain from her hair. We survived because of each other. He studied her quietly for a long moment. You're more than I expected, he said softly. And you're more dangerous than I imagined, she replied. Their eyes met, charged with tension, recognition, and something neither was ready to name. Outside, the city began to wake, oblivious to the web that had tightened around it, and to the fact that Maria and Jack were now bound not only by survival, but by the inescapable pull of shared danger. The mansion was eerily quiet that morning. The storm had passed, leaving the city slick with rain and the scent of wet asphalt. Maria stood on the terrace, her fingers tapping lightly against the railing. The events of the past days replayed endlessly in her mind. Sylvia's betrayal, Jason's capture, the relentless pursuit of the broker. Jack joined her, silent as ever, his coat damp from the drizzle. For the first time in days, he didn't speak immediately. He simply stood beside her, watching the city awaken below them. Finally, he said, "This ends tonight." Maria nodded. The broker won't wait, and neither will we. Jack's dark eyes met hers. Then we do this together. She felt the weight of those words, heavier than any weapon she had held. It wasn't just strategy or survival anymore. It was about trust and about choosing the right side in a game where the wrong move meant death. The plan was precise. Intelligence gathered over weeks pointed to the broker's central command, a fortified estate outside the city. Jack's men were ready, Maria's instincts sharp. They moved in under the cover of darkness, every step calculated, every shadow analyzed. As they approached, Maria could feel the tension thickening. This was it, the final confrontation. The broker's men were waiting, but the true target was the broker himself. Inside, the estate was eerily silent, corridors wide and empty. Jack gestured for Maria to follow closely, every muscle in her body coiled, ready for anything. Then they found him. The broker, calm, composed, dressed in dark clothing, eyes sharp and calculating. "Jack Light," he said smoothly, "and you brought a guest. Bold choice." Jack stepped forward, voice low and controlled. "It ends tonight." The broker smiled faintly. "It never ends, not really. You think killing me will stop the network? You think exposing my operatives is enough?" Maria moved beside Jack, weapon ready. "We don't need to destroy everything, just the part that's hunting him." The broker's eyes flicked to her, a glimmer of recognition, then amusement. "And who are you exactly? Protector, assassin, or something in between?" Maria didn't answer. She acted. The fight was intense, a dance of precision and strategy. Jack moved like a shadow, Maria like a ghost. Every strike calculated, every dodge premeditated. The broker was skilled, but he underestimated their coordination. Finally, the broker fell, restrained, defeated, and powerless. His empire, meticulously built, ruthless, shadowed by secrets, was crumbling. Jack stepped back, breathing heavily, eyes scanning Maria. "You were incredible." She shook her head, adrenaline still coursing. "We were incredible." By dawn, the broker's network had been dismantled. Surveillance, operatives, and financial channels were neutralized. The immediate threat was gone, leaving behind only the quiet weight of victory and the realization of everything they had endured together. Maria and Jack stood on the terrace of the mansion once more, watching the first rays of sunlight cut through the mist. The air was heavy with relief and exhaustion. "You stayed," Jack said quietly. "I didn't leave," Maria replied. He gave her a long look, dark eyes softening just slightly. "You could have walked away at any time." "I stayed because I wanted to survive," she said. "But also," her voice faltered just a fraction, "because I trusted you." Jack didn't move. The wind lifted strands of her hair. The city stretched endlessly below, and for the first time, he allowed himself to be unguarded. "I trusted you too," he admitted. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world outside the mansion could wait. They had survived the impossible, faced betrayal, and dismantled an empire of shadows. And in that silence, both of them understood something that didn't need words. They were stronger together. The storm had passed. The empire remained, rebuilt, secure, and alive. But the bond forged in fire, danger, and shared survival was something neither would ever forget. Maria let the wind brush against her face, taking a deep breath. The danger was over, for now, but the trust, the tension, and the unspoken understanding between them would last far longer than any threat. Jack stepped closer, his voice low, steady, and intimate. "We've survived the night. Now we decide what comes next." Maria met his gaze, and for the first time in this world of shadows and chaos, she felt a sense of certainty. "Together," she said simply. Jack nodded. Together. The city below shimmered in the morning sun, but neither looked down. They looked at each other, at the trust, the danger, and the bond that had been forged in fire. And in that moment, for Maria and Jack, the empire was theirs, not built on fear, but on survival, understanding, and the promise of what they could face together.